Right, thanks. I'd like to talk to you about my musical career, which started off a long time ago and reached great heights at one stage and was destroyed by, I know a lot of people have had their careers badly affected by COVID, but in my case, it wasn't the COVID, it was the brother. I'm nearly ashamed to talk about him because he was such a yoke, like an ugly yoke with a big drippy nose, and unfortunately, he was an identical twin of mine. But in our house when we were young, there was always music. Our mother liked music and was always singing, and sometimes she'd sing to us, she'd sing at us. If we did something wrong in the house, she'd sing, "Some children take a liking to their parents, while some mothers fill their mothers' hearts with pain," and that's yous. "And someday they will be sorry for their blindness, when crying will not take her back again. Now you skittershes," she'd say. So, and my father, when he had much older than my mother, and by the time we were aware of anything, he had taken to the bed. But even in the bed, like if there was a party or something on downstairs, he'd shout for silence and he'd play a tune on the flute and everyone would pause and applaud and we'd go again with the party. These parties, we wouldn't call them parties, it's just that there were four sisters in our family, and they were good-looking girls. And when any boy would come smelling around, my mother would always make it a condition, if he was getting into the house, he had to be able to sing or play something. And so as a result, we had a lot of very interesting people in the place. But there was one man, and he was Mammy's favourite. And he could play an accordion, and he was great. But he was 50, and my sister wasn't that fond of him. And mother says to her, "Oh no, that's the sort of man you should marry, you know, a man that can play music." And sister says, "It's all right for you, Mammy. You can listen to him, but you don't have to smell him," she says. So that was the same sister one day brought home a mouth organ, or a French fiddle as we called it at that time. And she started to play it. She could play Red River Valley. That's the tune that I was playing at the beginning. And she was playing Red River Valley. And when she left the mouth organ behind her. So I started fiddling about with the mouth organ and trying to write some notation by which I could remember tunes and stuff like that. So I came up with this. This was the notation that I had, Red River Valley, suck, blow, suck, blow, suck, suck, blow. And that's what you do with the mouth organ. And that's the only notation I had. So it didn't work at all. And one day, our mother went to Blayney Fair, and she came home with a fiddle. She had met or had come across a street singer or a street fiddler on the street and bought his fiddle for 30 shillings. And she brought it home, and now it looked homeless, I have to say. It was grey instead of brown, and it had obviously been out in all sorts of weather. But we started anyway. She says, we'll call it a violin, and you can learn to play it. Now, the brother had no interest in learning music at all. And he was far more interested in, shooting frogs with a pellet gun or something like that. And his friends would stop coming around because what he'd do was he'd get them to walk away from him and put their hands over their eyes, and then he'd shoot them in the arse. And that was his idea of fun, like so. But I would be practicing away down in the sitting room, and someone would come to Mammy and say, "Is Tommy around?" "Oh, he's down there in the room, rasping away at that old fiddle." So that was the support I got for the fiddle. But something happened that had a great effect on my musical career and was unexpected. One day in school, the master had us drawing circles, and everyone could draw freehand circles or compass circles. So the brother was sitting there. I never sat beside the brother because it was bad enough having to put up with him in the evening without having to put up with him at school as well. But there was another boy sitting beside him, and everyone was drawing circles, and the brother drew a circle, and then he put a dot inside on it, and he developed the dot a wee bit bigger, and a wee bit bigger, and a wee bit bigger. And then he wrote a 3-letter word beside it. And the 3-letter word began with T and ended with T. And the master, or the fellow beside him, giggled when he saw the word. And he said, and the master said, "What's that going on down there?" And he came down, they had the thing under this desk at that time, but he pulled it out, put it down and said, "Oh my God, that's awful." He says, "I'm going to get your mother." So the mother was called up, and fair enough, the mother defended the brother. And she said, "Oh, sure, what's wrong with that? That's natural enough," she said. And the master says, "It's not natural, it's impure." And she says, "Oh, sure, every woman has at least one of them, and men has imitations of them." She says, "There's nothing wrong." "But they're spelled wrong as well as everything else." He says, "It should be T-E-R-T. And she said, no, that's what you'd have on a cow. That's what you have on a woman or a man." So the parish priest had to be called. He couldn't get any change out of her at all. Parish priest took one look at it and said, "That boy's going to have to go to the reformatory school." And my mother said, "And what's going to happen to the other boy?" "Oh, he's going to have to go with him." He done nothing. And the parish priest said, "We don't want them boys jumping in and out and replacing one another and moving in and out. We want to be able to have the two of them under our eye." So the two of us were sent to the reformatory school. It was called St. McArdle's. But we loved it. We thought it was great. You'd learn things like Latin and Greek and Irish and English and celibacy and everything useful like that. And I became great at serving Mass because the Latin was no bother to me. And in fact, I was so good at it that one time I not only served a Mass, but I said a Mass. Well, I said a half a Mass. The priest was coming in. He was a bit hungover, and I was a bit tired. And we started off the beginning of the Mass in Troy Bod on Saturday, and they'd say, "Dear, quick, if you get even to mem." And we were none ahead, and the two of us half asleep through the Mass. And by the time we came to the De Profundis Climaviate Domini exaudio ratione meum, we realized that we had changed and that I was saying the Mass and he was answering me. And I realized too, believe it or not, that I had given him communion. So the same priest was responsible for the next change in my career because one morning the brother was serving Mass. You rang a bell and someone came down from a rota and it was the brother's turn. And he tripped with the cruets as he was going out in the altar. And all fell on the ground, spilled. Now, the priest didn't mind about the water, but the wine, definitely, he wasn't going to have any of that. So he says to him, "Get out." So the brother got out. "Ring the bell for a server," he says. So the brother rang the bell for a server, and I went down because I was the next on the list. And I got the point of me nose in the door. And that's about all, because he said, "Get out and ring for a server." So that was the end of my Mass career. But at the holidays, we used to go down to a man called George, a neighbour of ours, who was a great accordion player. And he used to play a Scottish tune called "The Lass of Bonaccord." Die dee die die dee die dee die dum die da dee die dee lum bum bum die lee die die dee die dee die dum lee lum bum bum. It was a sort of a march. It was called a Strasfair, and we loved going down to see George. But that was the end of that part of our career, because I always loved music. And when we started going to dances then, I used to love singing along with the bands. And the band would be singing along, and I'd sing along with them, which was great, because it was lovely singing along with the band, but it was also lovely if you're interested in a girl, and you'd be close set, and you'd be singing, "Take the ribbon from your hair, shake it loose and let it fall. Lay it soft upon my skin." And as he said skin, you just rub her cheek. "Like a shadow on the wall. Come and lay down by my side in the early morning light. All I'm taking is your time. Help me make it through the night." And you just whisper that last bit into her ear, and she'd wait for a second, and she'd say, "Have you a car?" And that's the way. It was great singing. But I went out and started trying to play football and other things instead, and I never thought much. I always liked music and singing, but I never thought much until one evening, I was going down to Limerick. I was doing a job down in Limerick. I was going from Dublin to Limerick, and I lifted a woman. I gave a woman a lift, and she was tumming, and she said she was going to Limerick to do a gig. She was a musician. So we started talking about one thing and another, and I said, "God, I would have loved to be able to play music. That's anything at all," I said, "that just would give me a social outlet." And she says, "Look, if God had meant you to be a musician, you'd be a musician. God doesn't mean you to be a musician." So I was mad. I don't know how she got to Limerick, because I left her out in Nina, and where she went. And I just thought about it afterwards, and I said, "My God, like, what is God to do with it? Why can't I learn something?" So I decided to try the mouth organ again. And what I discovered was that you don't have to know any notes at all to play it. All you have to do is bloody well play it. And if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. You try it again, and you try it till you get it right. And I was able to go down to George one night, and the two of us played the Lass of Bunaccord together, and we were delighted with ourselves. And that was, I said to myself, then why can't I play the guitar? So I started with one chord on the guitar, and then I got 2 chords, 3 chords, 4 chords, and before long I was writing songs and writing down songs and making them into books. And I started, and I made 2 CDs, and they were bought by everybody in the family. And I went on to try classical music, settings of tunes, settings of poems, and so on, and it was been very successful. And then I says, I'm going to try something. I came across a piece of music by Rimsky-Korsakov called "The Flight of the Bumblebee." And I said to myself, Christ, that Flight of the Bumblebee, it's just, you could try that with a ukulele and a harmonica. And he says, that's the harmonica, and then you get the ukulele, and you go, and if you get the two of them together, and all you need to get the two of them together is one of these, and you can play it And I was working away at it, trying to get a version of it, when the brother arrived one night. He had been drinking in Tavies, and he had got drunk on the Horseman, and then he had gone on to Anthony's, and Anthony threw him out, so he mustn't have been paying. And he came out to me to tell me the great brother I was. And he got me by the hand, and he squeezed my hand, and he said, "You're the best brother in the whole world. And me and you's the best brothers in the fucking world. And you're the best brother. And if there was, if there was two of us, it'd be better even if there was three of us, and there would be triplets. And me and you was the, and he got me with the two thumbs, and he says, and me and you was in the orchestra together in the school. And I says, well, yeah. And he said, and we were great. And he got me with the two thumbs at the end, and he says, "You're the best brother in the world. Now!" Ah! And my two thumbs were dislocated. So I had to go along the next day to the doctor. We called him the doc. And the doctor looked at the two thumbs sticking up, and he says, what are you doing with them? And I tried to explain to him, but he says, "You are in trouble." He says, "I hope you're not a musician." Well, I says, I'm trying. And he says, "No, you'll not make me. You'll be able to hold the guitar," he says, "but you'll never be able to do more than two chords. And the two, not even every two chords. I think the only two chords you'll ever be able to play are E and E minor beside one another. And you might be able to play a third, but them thumbs, you'll just be able to hold the guitar and forget about finger picking. Those fingers will never pick again." So I was left with that. And I went home, and I got the guitar, and I said to myself, "Now what can I do with an E and an E minor?" And Christ, like I said to myself, and I says, "God, maybe there's a tune there." So I decided to just try that, and no sucking, no blowing, just try it and see what would find. And I was feeling very down, and this is what came out. "It's always on a Sunday that the sun don't shine." And I began to develop that, and with the help of a couple of friends who had the odd line here and there, this is what I came out with. "It's always on a Sunday that the sun don't shine. You go to your cupboard, there's no wine. It's always on a Sunday that the sun don't shine. It's dull the whole weekend. It's always on a Monday that your headache starts. You think you're going to have to get a stint in your heart. It's always on a Monday that your headache starts and goes on the whole weekend. It's always on a Tuesday that the rain comes down. Your boots are full of water and there's floods in the town. It's always on the wooden Tuesday that your rain comes down and it pours the whole week long. It's always on a Wednesday your team gets beat. They've been facing relegation, now another defeat. It's always on a Wednesday your team gets beat 6-0 or 7-1. It's always on a Thursday that you don't get paid. You haven't got a penny and you can't get laid. It's always on a Thursday that you don't get paid and you're broke the whole weekend. It's always on a Friday that your neighbour dies. You've been hanging on for centuries, no surprise. It's always on a Wednesday and Friday that your neighbour dies. A funeral the whole weekend. It's always on a Saturday your groceries get lost. They're in someone else's table and the fortune at the cost. It's always on a Saturday your groceries get lost and you starve the whole weekend. And then they say, look on the bright side, there's a silver lining in every cloud. Always keep the good side out of bullshit like that. It's best to expect just nothing from life, then everything good is a great surprise. Some Sunday the sun shines reasonably bright. On Monday the skin on your head's not tight. On Tuesday the clouds in the sky stay up. On Wednesday you reach the quarter-final of the cup. On Thursday you get a small bonus in your pay. On Friday, your neighbours still a live way. Hey, on Saturday, your groceries are sitting at the door. And life's just fucking brilliant. And that's as far as I can go with me hands the way they are. That fucking brother. And the doctor said to me, that's if you with your fingers, he said, the bumblebee is going to hit a wall and fall into the shite. That fucking brother. Do you know what I'm going to do someday? I'm just going to get a CD and a 78 and an LP. And I'll put them together. I'll break them over his fucking head.